Today's episode is a little different. I want to take you back to where it all began. A small town girl, a lot of unknowns, and a heart that was just hoping for something more. And over the last 23 years, I've built a business, experienced incredible blessings, but also walked through burnout, striving, and learning things the hard way. And what I know is this, is that you can have it all, but you cannot do it all. So today, I'm sharing my story and why I created this space for you. Because friend, you're not alone. So let's do this. Are you a Christian entrepreneur feeling overwhelmed and burned out, struggling to find balance in your business and life? Well, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Bridget, a wife, an entrepreneur of over 23 years, a mindset coach, and a woman who loves the Lord. I help you move from burnout to balance through simple daily systems that bring peace back into your business and your life. If you're ready for some simple strategies, real life resets, and a little encouragement to help you feel hope again, take a deep breath, close a few of those tabs in your brain, and let's dive in together. And make sure you check out my show notes for an awesome free guide that I have for you. It's some of my favorite tips for beating burnout to balance. Make sure you check that out and grab that before you go. Well, thank you so much for tuning in for my very first podcast. I can honestly tell you so much prayer and time and journaling went into this decision. For so many years, I felt like God wanted to use my story, and it's quite the story. And I felt like somehow He's got to use all this. And so this is the way that kept coming back to my heart. And so I'm just so glad that you landed here, whether this was shared with you by a friend or you happen to just have found me. I'm just so grateful that you're here. And I really do pray, and I have prayed, that something that I say during this podcast will be a gift to you, will be a blessing. So let's go ahead and dive in. So during this podcast, I'm going to share so many things, but during this journey, I'm going to share my 23-year experience of building a business, the things that worked really well, the things that didn't work so well, the things that I learned about working the world's way versus building God's way, and along that journey, experiencing so much burnout, chronic illness, and things that were a result of working in ways that did not honor the Lord. There is a better way, and it can be done. And so what I really wanted to create was a space for women who felt that overwhelm, but wanted to be successful, but didn't really know how to do it outside of the constant striving all the time. Maybe you're trying to raise a family and trying to build a business. You're pursuing a dream that's been on your heart for a long time, or building something that's just super meaningful to you, and you don't really know how to find the balance in it all. I get it. That was 100% me. And so I want you to know that you're not alone in that. And I built not the best way for a very, very long time. And so I want you to know that for sure. So I've been building and thinking about this for a long time. And I really do hope that we're going to build something beautiful together and that there's going to be a community and support. So stay tuned for all of that, because really the one thing that I've heard from women a lot is I just need a place where I feel seen and supported. And so I hope through this podcast, that's one way. But then I hope as we build community and different things through this journey, that there's going to be other ways that we can support you as well. And so let me go and tell you a little bit about me. That way you know who I am and why I'm even sharing my story. Is I actually grew up in a very tiny town. My graduating class was actually only 32 people. My childhood was very interesting. And just for privacy of my family, I won't go into a lot of those details unless God one day wants me to share my whole story. But I do want to say the one piece of my story that really shaped me a lot was my dad actually left my mom while she was pregnant with me. And he came to the hospital when I was born, and he paid my bill. He looked at me through the nursery window, and he didn't come see me or my mom. And so, unless you do a lot of studying on the mind and all that, and I won't go into that today, and maybe we'll talk more about that in later episodes, but so much shapes you, even from birth, when you don't even realize it's shaping you. And so my grandmother has always been my safe place. And I didn't quite understand the gravity of that until she passed away in 2020, of how much of a safe place she was. So when my dad left, my grandmother was there, of course, with my mom, her daughter, and was there for my birth. And then my mom and I came home to my granny. And then 7 months later, my grandfather passed away. So we always say it was us girls, we were making it. And so growing up, my grandmother was always that place, but then she was always my encourager, my biggest cheerleader. She was just that safe place to fall. Have you ever had that person that literally you can be an adult, but get in their lap and everything's better? and that was my granny. No matter how old I was, I could crawl in her lap and like everything was good in the world. And so looking back now, I understand more about how our past shapes how we show up in the world as adults. And even though I didn't understand that when I became an entrepreneur, when I started digging more into my patterns and my wiring that had not served me, it made a lot more sense. So as I was building my business, I was building from a place of perfectionism, like people pleasing, this deep need to be validated and loved. And all of that came from my story, from that place of wanting to feel accepted and enough from literally birth and programming that I got. And what I've learned is that so many of those patterns that we get, we didn't even realize where they came from. And this may be even a new thought for you today. But I always wanted everybody to be happy. You know, my grandmother always said, you were always the happiest baby. You never cried. And I thought, why was that? Well, because you get that programming. I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to be loved. And if I don't upset anyone, then I'll be accepted. And so it's really sad, but it's true. And those patterns don't disappear. They follow us into adulthood. So without realizing it, I wasn't building my business from a place of confidence. I was building it from those patterns that were trying to protect me. And so some days I just thank my sweet little body for as hard as it's fought for me all of these years. So I started actually building a business when I was 25 years old, and we were newly married at the time, living paycheck to paycheck, or we called it pocheck to pocheck. We were poor between paychecks. And my best friend approached me about starting a business. And even though I knew nothing about nothing, I had been praying for something that would help provide more for us financially. And at the time, I worked for a doctor, and I loved her so much. And I had just really known like working a regular job. That's kind of what was in, what I knew from my own family. And one day my doctor walked in before my friend told me about being a business owner. And she said, Bridget, you're made for more than this. Now, never in my life had someone said those words to me. Now, this is my own boss telling me this. Then fast forward, not even just maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, we were putting food back on the shelf in the grocery store because we couldn't afford more than $26 in groceries. And my best friend came to town, and she had started a business, and she was really successful at it. And she was sharing with me more about it. And all I could hear was hope. Those 4 little letters, hope, that maybe this is what I needed to do. So it was a network marketing business, and I knew nothing about that. And it was actually a skincare business, and I was using rubbing alcohol for my skincare. And that's a true story. I had horrible acne, and I thought, if I can just dry this up, it'll be good. So I knew nothing. I had no business running a business, but I heard hope that day. Even though I was scared to death and painfully shy, I just chose to be invisible, really, that I thought, how in the world can I do this? But y'all, I did. I started my business that day. And there are so many days I wanted to quit. I just thought they can just have it all if they'll just let me go. I didn't even care. But y'all, after 5 months, I was able to actually walk away from my job that I had and pursue my business full time. And what's crazy about that is the very next month, my doctor I worked for announced she was leaving her practice, and we were all going to have to find jobs. But I didn't have to because I'd already had this. And so God had already aligned that situation and already had blessed me with a way when I didn't even know I needed that way yet. And so over those 23 years, which we'll dive into so much more during this podcast, I have learned so much. I have built an incredible, successful team that I love and adore still today. I have been blessed to travel around the world. I have been incredibly blessed with friendships that I could never put a price tag on. I've been very blessed. But I've also learned a lot about how I built this business. And because for a long time, I was building the world's way through the striving and the pressure, constantly trying to, prove something, following the scoreboard, the accolade, the next shiny thing. And the way of working that way did not serve me. It created a place of burnout, and my body started getting sick in about 2013. I started getting some chronic illness. Doctors couldn't figure it out. All my tests were fine. They finally said, you just have chronic fatigue. Never really had heard of that. And so over years, it just kept getting progressively worse. Well, you heard me mention in 2020, I lost my grandmother. We also know what happened in 2020 with the world. And it's like my little bucket that had been surviving for so long finally tipped over. And so, you just couldn't take it anymore. And I got very, very chronically ill in 2020. And I have been fighting that ever since. And still to this day, I am working through that. And part of my healing journey is this podcast. It is sharing my story so that other women don't have to go through what I went through, but also even having aha moments to say, oh my goodness, I didn't even think about how my past had shaped the way I show up as an entrepreneur, etc. So much of my story will come out through the podcast. But one of the biggest lessons I learned is that if you do not rest, your body will do it for you. And it will sometimes be a hard stop. And that's exactly what happened to me. I believe that God slowed me down in this season because he wanted to reveal these things to me. He wanted me to heal, and he knew I could not heal working in that state. A word he gave to me a long time ago was anxious striving to courageous thriving. And I've had that in my mind because I think I was working so hard in the striving in an anxious state. There wasn't this courageous, confident thriving that was in peace and flow. And I believe you can have it all. I just don't think that you can do it all. And I don't think you can do it all the world's way. I think there's got to be an alignment with the Lord, having business meetings with him, trusting him, giving him your first. And these were things that, while I loved him, I have loved him pretty much my whole life, my adult life. I did not grow up in a Christian home, but I got to know him very early in my adult life. And I will say that I just want to serve him well, but my old programming was fighting me. As a matter of fact, I became a mindset coach during the pandemic, more to help my team and to be a better leader. But through that, I learned so much about myself. So while I'm not going to be talking as a mindset coach on this podcast, I will share the things throughout our journey that really were ahas for me of what I was doing that was not serving me well. And so I just want to say to all of you listening that every day is a new day. The number 8 is my favorite number in the Bible because it's a new beginning. And actually one of my scriptures that I cling to, the paraphrase version of it, is Isaiah 43:19, is I'm doing a new thing. And so what I'm going to be sharing on this podcast is I'm going to teach you what I've learned about working the world's way versus God's way in peace, alignment, and flow that makes sense to you and your values. I want to show you actually how I have learned to work less and still have great success with rhythms that have worked for me through chronic illness, through just wanting to be the best daughter of the King that I can and honor him through my work. You know, God honors our work. He loves when we work. His word talks about that. He also talks about laziness. And so I've always thought my work ethic was so great and I was honoring him. But in reality, I wasn't. I was striving so much the world's way that I wasn't putting him first in it. And I think so much of that came from that. So I'm going to be sharing with you my best strategies for my favorite morning and evening routines, the things that have helped me go from anxious striving to courageous thriving. And I really do hope that you're going to find some nuggets here that are going to be a blessing to your business. So I want to thank you so much for just taking the time to listen. And I hope that whether you got this from a friend or you're sharing this with someone that really needs to hear this message too, that I just want to say thank you for that. And I also hope that you come back week after week to hear more as I break down the pieces of my journey. And I really do pray for you, and I'm praying daily for the women that hear this podcast that just feel hope and you feel seen and you feel supported. And so thank you so much for taking time today to hear a little bit of my story. Of course, we will unpack so much more in the time to come, but I just want to say thank you. And I really hope to see you next week. Hey friend, I hope this gave you a little more clarity and a whole lot of hope today. And if it did, would you share it with another Christian entrepreneur who's juggling all the things too? And if you haven't already, leave a quick review. It helps more women find this space. And remember, you don't need a full restart. Maybe you just need a simple reset. Small steps done consistently really do create change. And there is so much hope in that. So take a deep breath. Today is a new day, and you've got this. And I can't wait to see you next week.